My name's Joe Furla, and I'm going to be leading today's patching masterclass within Insight RMM, and we'll go ahead and get started. Real quickly, everybody is on mute. Please do keep yourselves on mute. There's a large amount of us in here today, and I don't want us talking over each other, that kind of deal. But that being said, please don't think we don't want questions. Use the questions pane to ask questions. Ask them at any time. We want to hear those questions, get them out of the way, get them answered, that kind of deal. Just please do make sure you're using the questions pane. Now, as a heads up here, I am on a single screen. So I will be flip-flopping back and forth between the presentation and the questions pane. So if you ask a question and I don't immediately acknowledge you, please note I'm not trying to leave you high and dry. I just haven't flipped over. So where I get a pause, I'll make sure I check those questions as we're going through the presentation. So don't hold them till the end. Context is always key. All right. That being said, if you have any audio or visual issues, please let me know. On that note, if you folks can hear me well, please do let me know in the questions pane. I did a sound check earlier. There was only like 2 people in, and I don't know if they heard me. They were probably getting coffee or something. Now that I have kind of, for lack of a better term, a captive audience, we're going to force you guys to make sure we can hear you can hear me. All right, and then lastly, today's session will be recorded for quality control and training purposes. Please note that the recording today will be put into the Enable Resources page. I cannot send it out on my own, nor can I provide the deck from today's presentation. But let's be honest, you probably don't want the deck anyway. It's like 2 slides and then demo, because let's be honest, that's what we're here for, is the demo. On that note too, when we're looking at any forward-facing items we may be talking about today, I'm not dev nor my PM. I don't control their schedule. I don't control what they do with that schedule. So while I'm giving you the most accurate information that I may have, it may not be set in stone. Things are always subject to change. Now, on the note of updates and preview items, there's been a large amount of work done to the dashboard in the past couple months. We've got a number of items in beta, like the vulnerability dashboard, the script repository. We've got some of the assets dashboard within beta right now. We've got just a number of features. If you want to be a part of that beta or you want to preview those updates, reach out to your partner success manager. Tell them that you want to be a part of the Insight beta program, and they should be able to sign you up for it. If they don't know what to do, just tell them reach out to me. The beta program's reasonably new. Again, my name's Joe Furla, Josephferla. They should know how to get in touch with me, and I'll teach them how to get you folks signed up for the beta program so that you'll be not only given the features, but also added to the proper forums, which is the real thing you want. The features are well and good, but there is specific beta forums within the Enable Me community that you want to be a part of, and those forums are also how you get into subsequent betas. Okay. If you do not have a PSM or you do not know who your partner success manager is, shoot me an email, joseph.furla@enable.com. I'll reach out to PM. I'll get you in the beta program or get you the proper link to get you signed up for the beta program. All right. Which that little rabbit hole is question 1. Thank you for those of you who are asking questions. Context is key. We're talking about updates. We're talking about preview items. Get the questions out. Hopefully that answered it. All right. Before we dive into our commercials and regularly scheduled program today, what I want to give you folks the ability to do real quick is answer a poll here. Now, for some reason, GoToWebinar was not allowing me to save a poll. So if you would like to answer, how are you patching today? I'd love to hear. We don't. We're patching manually by logging on to individual devices. We're patching with manual approval, but automated installation, or we're automating patching as much as we can. And again, my apologies for technology kind of messing with me today. But if you guys want to get that questions pained, that'd be much appreciated. All right. While you folks are getting your answers to the poll in, I'll give myself a quick introduction and apologize for some of the wrong icons being on the screen here. Namely, this is supposed to be Reddit, not Twitter. But sometimes you can't control marketing. Anywho, like I mentioned earlier, my name's Joe Furla. I've been here at Enable for 7 years. I've held most of the customer-facing positions within the company outside of support, be it channel sales, be it sales engineer, be it partner success management. I was actually one of the ones who created that team, and now head nerd. Right, it gives me a unique perspective on company-wise what you folks are dealing with as an MSP, how it is to interact with you folks from the Enable perspective. But on the flip side, I was also an MSP, and I did use Enable product. So I know what it's like for you folks out in the real world to interact with Enable. It also gives me a pretty good understanding of both sides of our technology, right? The person who's actually driving the car in the real world and the mechanic or engineer that's building the car. So I think, like most of the head nerds, quite a unique perspective and something we're quite proud to bring to the table. But more importantly than this, if you need to get in touch with me, you can find me on LinkedIn at Joe Furla. You can find me on Reddit as Head Nerd Joe, or you can always shoot me an email, joseph.furla, that's F-E-R-L-A, at enable.com. If you are a current Insight user, please do feel free or feel inclined to reach out and give us a review on G2. It'll get you a $25 gift card for your time. Something we're very excited to have up and running, something we would like to hear your folks' feedback on. For those of you who have been attending things like Empower or regularly talking with PM, you'll note that the G2 surveys and reviews are getting a lot of traction in the development and PM world. I'm so quite happy to say that. Quite happy to be a part of that. Please do look at continuing your support there. All right. That is going to bring us through our commercials and update items or upkeep items and to today's agenda. So there's going to be 3 kind of portions of this, right? One of them is going to be going over patching fundamentals, also known as why are we patching. I don't think that that's quite a necessary item. I do think it's table stakes to being a good MSP nowadays to patch, but something I do like to review real quickly. I do like to drive home that this is a high value item that we are looking at working with or that we're looking at providing services for. Outside of that, we'll go through some quick key outcomes from today's webinar. What are we looking to get out of this? And then we'll go into our demo. Again, the reason we're here. That'll be by far the longest part of this. All right, so this why patching is so important section. Again, I know as MSPs, this is something we just natively and intrinsically understand. It's like instinct for us, right? We've spent years evolving with technology, evolving with the market, and understand why we're seeing issues here. Some of our end users may not quite understand this. They may not quite get this. So this why patching is important section is also quite a nice way to break down patching in very small bite-sized chunks as to why your end users are going to need it. So maybe something, if you have very technical sellers, you could hand something like this to them so they can use it in their sales process. But anywho, why are we patching, right? Well, one, we need to fix bugs and issues within product, right? With the amount of pieces of software or the amount of applications our end users are using today, patching goes without saying. It needs to be a part of their weekly, at least, schedule. To keep the software that's needed for them to make money running properly, patching is a necessity. Think about how many times AutoCAD or Adobe or QuickBooks or any of these other tools are patching. If we're not looking at this on a weekly basis, we're losing productivity, right? So it improves performance of the applications as well as the end users. It adds new features to those applications, especially when we look at the amount of SaaS applications that are out there in the wild. And most importantly, it fixes vulnerabilities. While we are typically looking at, as MSPs, to sell cybersecurity, let's back that up. Sorry, while we're looking to sell productivity and peace of mind through the lens of cybersecurity, right? What we're also looking at doing is making sure that our end users are aware of why we are doing that, why we are putting this effort in, what is in it for them. And vulnerabilities, in my mind, are the reason we are looking at doing this, right? Especially in today's day and age. Gone are the days of, what was it, the early 2000s. If it's not broke, don't patch it, right? Now it's a necessity for a weekly, maybe bi-weekly patching schedule, right? And the statistics I have up on screen, yes, I know are a little bit older, but they do tend to still hold water. And in current research, the numbers are about the same, where we look at 43% of cybersecurity attacks going against SMBs, right? We look at 60% of the attacks that happened could have been prevented by a patch. We look at vulnerabilities being published and identified to 15 days later on average an exploit being in the wild. We're dropping over 30 days over the past decade to this number becoming increasingly small. And remember, that's on average. So when we look at an exploit or vulnerability being published, right, we have some malicious actor in 15 days taking advantage of that. And those are the folks that are like you and me, where they're pretty good at generating some type of malware. These aren't the folks that we're talking about that are the black cats of the world, that are the almost commoditized and corporatized malware organizations that have been taking advantage of this for years, right? They're seeing these vulnerabilities identified and exploiting them within hours, right? A good patch schedule is one of the best first lines of defense you're going to have to any type of malicious actor, right? It is now a critical security item, and I cannot stress that enough, either to my end users or to you as MSPs or internal IT support providers. Right, so getting, again, kind of the rehash and not so much the boring stuff, but getting the stuff out of the way. We've got some key outcomes that we're going to need to go over before we look at this. What we're really looking at doing in about 30 to 45 minutes here is mastering the fundamentals of Microsoft and third-party application patching within Insight, looking at streamlining this patching process for efficiency, so maybe some best practices that I used in the real world, looking at how we can swiftly address our releases. Some 3-letter organization sends out an email or a notification, or the news tells you about this vulnerability that you know is going to heavily infect your environments. The patch has been released. How can we handle this? Right? And then also look at how can we work better with our end users with the tools that Insight gives us when we're looking at going through our patching process. Which leads us to the fun part, or at least I think the reason we're here. And that's going to be the work within Insight itself. All right, so bear with me as I get into the Insight RMM. Right, you folks should see my Insight RMM. If you guys don't see it by now, let me know within the questions pane, and I'll look at doing any troubleshooting that may be necessary. But at this point, everything should be out of Insight until we get to the final Q&A. So, quick geography here as we're going through patching. Okay, places that we're going to sit and what we're going to be looking at. We're going to see over here on the right side of the screen, or sorry, the left side of the screen, where it says Company Core, All Clients, My Client and Site List. We're going to call this the West pane. Where we're seeing my devices here, specifically servers, we're in the North pane. Down here in the bottom, where we see our gray lines ticking over, this is the South pane. When it comes to patching, there are... Oh, you guys are not seeing my screen. Oh, well, there we go. Learning something new about GoToWebinar. Haha. Looks like when you change from sharing a full screen to an application, it might pause on you. Anyway, okay, so over here on the left-hand side, we see our West pane. Here in the middle, on the top, we see our North pane. Down here at the bottom, we see the South pane. The South pane is going to show you individualized information for the devices that you select within the North pane. So if I pull this CSP 0010 server and come down here to the South pane, I can come into the Patches tab, and I can see the statuses for my patches that Enable has interacted with. So I can see patches that are missing, ones we are able to interact with, pending items, ones that are waiting for installation. I can see installed. I can see if they're uninstalling, failed, ignored. I get my basics of my patching information down here. Down here in the South pane, I can take individualized action on devices. I can right-click on a patch, and I can choose the status to put it in or the action to take on it. Approving a patch means I'm going to look at installing it. So let's say I wanted to install this Broadcom patch. I can come in and either use a previously set schedule. We'll talk about that in a second. Or I can schedule for a new time, whether I'd like to do it now, customize the schedule, and then I can control my reboot behavior here as well. You'll note there are 4 other statuses or actions I can take upon the patch. The first is going to be ignore it. Ignoring a patch is going to take it out of the missing container, and it's going to put it into our ignored container. Why this is relevant will become apparent in a couple minutes. With another right click, I can do nothing. What do nothing is going to do is it's going to break any global ability to interact with a patch, and it's going to keep that patch in the missing container, and it's going to not take any automatically approved action. That patch is going to sit there until you come to this individual device and you click approve for that particular patch. Okay. This is very, very, very rarely used. Think of this as patches that are about to blue screen of death the entire fleet of devices that you have. They get do nothing. patches that we're going to be delaying until a specified time frame, patches we need to do additional research on. I'm looking at you, Microsoft, and your driver patches. Those are going to be items that we set to ignore. We're going to put them in a separate container. We're going to look at knowing that that container is there and designated for research. Okay, or patches we're legitimately putting off for a period of time. The other two actions here, quite self-explanatory. Reprocess failed. I'm going to reprocess a failed patch. Uninstall. If my patch says uninstallable here in my uninstallable column, we see my yes, we see my no. I have the ability to right-click and uninstall that patch if necessary. So the South pane gives us some reasonable control over individual devices' patches. Gives us some good flexibility in maintaining good statuses for those patches, and it gives us the ability to manage that individual device for Microsoft and third party pretty well. But that doesn't really give us efficiency. I don't want to touch every device. I want to touch devices when there are problems. I don't want to touch devices when everything's running smoothly like it should. I want to do things at the site, the client, or the global level. And Patch is designed to do that. I just start down here in the South pane because it kind of gives us a nice little view into what our devices can do. Not the real power. The real power of the patch solution is going to come from settings up here in the top drop downs, to patch management, and then to feature policy. Feature policy here is going to give us the ability to customize as many policies as we would like, be it by company, be it by site, be it by, whatever denotation you would like. I've got mine done here by company. That being said, I do think this has gone more often than not out of style, for lack of a better term. And what I typically teach as a best practice nowadays for patching is going to be security level or risk acceptance level as our patching. The reason I say that is it's very easy to bucket clientele together for standardization based upon your risk acceptance when signing them as an MSP. Company 1 and Company 2 might be a hospital and a legal office. And in the past, I may have set up their patching a bit different. But now how I'm going to look at these clientele with the way the market has evolved and our environments and our world has evolved, I'm now going to look at these as they are both high risk acceptance clients. If I'm going to provide patching services, and I'm going to provide security services as an MSP in general, I need to be more in control than what previously I was. I need to be thinking more about, I have now 1,000 devices that are high risk acceptance. I need to work with those in a standardized, consistent fashion so that my high level of customer service can quickly and easily translate across all of my devices. Right? So what I would see in the real world nowadays would be less patch policies where we're looking at a server high, mid, and low, a workstation high, mid, and low, and then my rare and unique customers that require an exception, manufacturing being the easiest example here, they will get their own policy. I pull manufacturing as an example because their windows for patching are incredibly tight. If a manufacturing plant has to reboot devices, that means they are losing productivity in any hour of the day, right? The larger the manufacturing plant, the closer you get to 24/7 being true profitability, and anything less is losing money, right? Hospitals are a reasonable example for this as well. Again, very tight patching windows. They may get exceptions. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a rule of thumb here: high, medium, and low security. Now, what these policies are going to allow me to do, say when I'm looking at a high security workstation, policy is set the name of the policy, which I just did upon creation, but if I was editing, I'd get the ability to edit it here. It's going to give me the ability to control my patch status scan, right? Patch status scan, we'll cancel out here real quick. It's going to show up underneath the checks pane in the south tab, or checks tab in the south pane. It's going to be a 24/7 check, which means it's going to run once every 24 hours. And it's going to show us our missing patches for that individual device, as well as a last scan time. By default, our servers are going to run at 6 a.m. and our workstations are going to run at 10 a.m. This is again because it's the daily safety check cycle. So we have some flexibility with our patch status scan. We can keep it in alert mode, which means every time a missing patch is found, we get an alert based off of your alert settings and routed to the appropriate place. Or we can put it into report mode, which is very similar to what I have here, where if you see behind this little window, my patch status check is telling me I have 6 missing patches, but it's still passing in green. I operate under the assumption there's always missing patches. I know this check's always going to fail. I don't need to be alerted outside of specific devices or specific roles or specific sites that there's missing patches. I'm going to keep this in report mode. It gives me the pertinent information I need at my fingertips. It gives me the ability to quickly check on what may be missing from an individual device. Do I have the right cumulative update or whatever? Okay, but it's going to clear up a little bit of white noise within my dashboard. Now, that being said, I talk to a large number of MSPs that tend to err on the side of a little bit more, I don't have a better word for it, paranoid. They will alert for servers. For workstations, they're going to leave in report mode. Workstations become very overwhelming. It's a lot of white noise. Servers are mission critical devices. If something's not right on a server, you need to know about it. Patching may be one of those things for you and your organization. So alert mode is a nice idea here. Then we'll have our schedule. You can run on a daily safety check cycle or an individualized scan schedule as you would like, with the top and the bottom options here. I leave mine at the default daily safety check. The checks are lightweight. I've never had any issues with them. They run once a device boots up if it is down at the time of the scan. So I always get that pertinent information coming back to me. Okay. Again, default for servers, 6 a.m., default for workstations, 10 a.m. There is an option for a manual scan, and I will be quite honest, I do not know why it's there. I don't think we need to be manually scanning our devices to find missing patches. I think what we need to be doing if we're looking at an individual device is clicking on a hyperlink. If you want to run manual scans, by all means, go for it. I just haven't come up with a good use case for it being there yet. Unless you're dealing with like a Windows 7 device where you've like bootstrapped the agent onto it somehow. All right, outside of patch status, the next 2 items we're going to get are going to be our Microsoft and our other vendor approvals. This is where we start automating patch. Microsoft approvals are going to be broken out by classification or categorization, whatever you want to call it, from Microsoft themselves. We don't mess with this. We don't mess with the high, medium, or high, moderate, critical, or low severity, right? We focus on what Microsoft is sending us and the information they're giving us. So underneath our automatic approvals, we're going to have 3 actions. The ability to manually approve, automatically approve, and ignore. Okay, so ignore ignores, approves, automatically approves, manual puts it to manual approval. So when we were talking in the South pane about ignored, missing, and pending being patches that are scheduled for installation, if we have approved selected, the minute those patches are found, a critical update comes out, the PME engine recognizes it's there, it sees that the action is approved, that patch immediately goes to pending. If we see manual, the patch stays in the missing category. If we see ignore, the patch moves to the ignored container. So you'll note I have a pretty good selection of all of these here. Critical updates, definition updates, security updates, all being the items that are going to be automatically approved. This is my best practice. And I like this particular method because it ensures that I'm going to be getting anything that Microsoft says is a huge security risk, critical updates, thank you. Okay, a reasonable security risk, security updates, thank you. And anything that I may need definition-wise on my device, right? I want to make sure these are there every week at least. The items that I have set to ignore, specifically application and upgrades, these are items that I want to do additional research on. I like them in the ignored container because it takes them out of the missing bucket, okay, and puts me in a world now where I have the ability to go through and look at what those patches are going to be doing, not just to the application or the OS, but to the version of it. Am I going from Windows 10 to Windows 11? Am I going from whatever version Word's on major release to the next one? Okay, what is this doing to my environment? When we get to drivers, feature packs, service packs, tools, update rollups, and updates, I want to know they're missing, but I'm not going to have much research here. I'm going to do my Patch Tuesday research. More often than not, these are just going to get almost blanketly approved. Right? So I'm using that ignored container to say, hey, I have additional work I need to do here, or these patches are going to be pushed to a later time. Okay. And I've got my missing telling me, okay, these patches are missing. They're reasonably ready to install, or at least as ready as I can have them to install. Let's get them moving forward. Next up, we're going to have our other vendor updates. These are going to be items for my third-party applications that are going to be, I don't want to say blanketly approved per vendor, but I don't have a better way to describe it. We're dividing up by individual third-party vendor here and the applications that they support. And we're going to have 2 or 3 methods of setting our approvals here. We're going to see, just like our Microsoft patching, we have ignore, approve, and manual settings. And we can go vendor by vendor. But what we also have is a select all products dropdown. This is going to change for the vendors that are in our patching program at the time of setting this setting. So the list as it stands now, I've set to approve. This list is going to remain. Any new products that may get added to PME over the upcoming weeks, months, years are going to initially be set to manual, and then I can come through, find those new items, adjust them to approved after I've done whatever research or whatever vetting I need to look at doing for those individual patches. I've tended to, in the past, leave my third parties at manual. We've all had third-party applications that we work with that can be pretty finicky when it comes to patching. So, keep an eye out. Make your best educated decision here. There's not really a true one-size-fits-all best practice. Microsoft could be a little bit more prescriptive. There's not really a one-size-fits-all best practice there either. But third-party vendors is, just due to the nature of the list, even more ambiguous than what is the Microsoft approval. So be aware. We have our 3 methods of setting those actions. Once we've got these actions set, we can control our installation schedule here within the policy. You can set to manual installation. Again, within a policy, outside of some very unique cases, don't know why this is here. Okay, we're using this policy to look at automating patch. So what we're able to do on a daily, weekly, or monthly schedule is choose a specified time that we're going to be pushing patches. Now, I tended to, in the real world, push Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I didn't want to push on patch Tuesday. I didn't want anything that was broken coming down. I wanted Wednesday for the problems to get fixed. I wanted Thursday for the fixes to be vetted. I would patch Friday. Okay, and then Saturday or Sunday, or Friday and Monday, depending on the individual organization I was working with. You have the ability to control a reboot here. You can set it to never when required by the patch, or always after each patch installs. Maybe a little bit of overkill there. And one of the things we're going to keep in mind until the last quarter of the presentation, because we're going to do some scripting there, is that the reboot here that's associated with patch comes with a prompt that is unable to be minimized or put in the background, and it is a hard 5-minute reboot. So the prompt comes up, your device has been patched. It will now reboot within 5 minutes. Okay, so whether we are being cognizant of our end user's schedule and looking at, say, for a legal office, patching at 4 o'clock on Friday to be as minimal to productivity loss, right? But still having somebody in front of the device in case something goes wrong, maybe. Okay. Or we're looking at patching over the weekend or overnight or whatever. That 5-minute reboot can be a bit frustrating for end users. We'll have a workaround, or we'll have another way we can look at doing some reboots after we go through patch, and we'll talk about some scripting with that. So please be aware. Then we have the ability to control if our schedule's missed. We can run ASAP when the device boots up. Please note there is a reasonable delay here. The device isn't going to turn on, load Windows, and all of a sudden we're starting to download patches. Okay. We give the device time to stabilize. We get it up and running, get the end user in, then we start patching. Okay. And we have the ability to control our reboot behavior. So for instance, if we are running outside of our regularly scheduled patch cycle, I can choose not to include the reboot by unchecking the box, or include the reboot behavior while the box is checked. Please note, if you have never selected underneath the reboot after installation option, you cannot interact with this box as there is no reboot there. Okay. And then the last option we have is, what are we going to do with failed patches? I am a big fan of American baseball and 3 strikes you're out. So I give my patches 3 times to automatically reprocess. And then once that patch has failed, I get an email notification to the email I've set up inside my alert policy saying, hey, patches are failing, or this patch is failing installation. I think the 3 tries and you're done method is pretty good here. You can go less if you would like. You could go more if you would like. But I think it's a reasonable expectation that if a patch fails 3 times in a row, you'll know in probably about 15 minutes of that patch trying to be installed that it's failed. You need to go look at it. Okay. Reasonable expectations there. So the policy gives us some nice control. Once we've got our policy created, I can come to patch management in the top drop down, come to settings, And on a client or site level, select where I would like to install the patch or turn on patching at. And I have the option to either use parent, which adopts the settings from the level above. So in the case of a client, it pulls the machine type settings. In the case of a site, it pulls the client settings. And then select the policy, if appropriate, that I need to be working with for that particular denotation. When we're looking at an individual device, double-clicking on that device, coming to wherever it went, patch management, here we are. You'll have the same options, a hard off or on, and then a used policy settings as necessary. Please note, if you set a policy at the device level with the hard on policy, it will override anything at the site, client, or machine type level. If you set it at the site level, it'll override client and machine type. If you set it at the client level, it overrides machine type. You get the drift here. Okay, so be cognizant as to where we're turning on those patching items. So good question here. Inside the questions pane, let's see if I have a device that's got one of these. And the question is, while I'm finding one, is going to be failed patches. When we see a patch in failed, does that mean we need to go and we need to reprocess failed? Here's my purposely problematic device. Thank you for some EDR testing. That's been fun. I'm messing with this device. But anywho, you can see this device is in a rough state. Where this device says failed, you will note that these are all cumulative updates, and they are classified as security updates. So if I double click on my device here, and I come to patch management, we'll see it's on Company 3 workstation. I can come in, feature policy, Company 3 workstation, failed patches once it decides to load. Okay. So what I'm being told here is whether or not outside of my installation schedule from the policy, do I try to install this patch? So no matter how it gets approved and installation's tried. It's been reprocessed 3 times, and I now have an email notification that tells me this has failed. Now, let's say, for instance, I come in and it's new information that these have failed. My call to action at that point is I need to go do research on this device as to why it's failed. So I could double click on the patch. Okay. And if appropriate, I will get process exited with code or Microsoft error or whatever we are seeing there. Okay, so I will get my installation failure reasoning, and I can go do my research. Once my research is done, I fixed whatever it is that was causing this on the device. Look at critical Chrome patches and them not always relaunching the window to show that they successfully installed, or maybe a cumulative update not having enough space on a device to properly install. Not really a physical device, more VM type thing. Okay, but whatever that reason may be, once I've got it fixed, I can right click on the patch and I can click reprocess failed. That's going to take that patch out of failed and put it into pending. And we're back into our regularly scheduled patch denotation and cycle. Okay. So one of the things about cumulative updates that I had somebody point out here is they've started. Well, I shouldn't say started. Windows has over time pushed more and more and more things like preview updates into cumulative updates. And we don't have any control over this as MSPs or as RMM vendors. Microsoft is as Microsoft does. They're going to continue to do this. They are more and more taking reins from end users and doing things for them, kind of like Apple's been doing for years. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? I don't have a great answer yet. Okay. Weirdly enough, I kind of lean towards it's a good thing, right? Because I look at, say, some of the organizations I work with on the side that deal with younger children. They are incredible when it comes to working with technology. They really are. They've grown up with it. It's a second language to them. Have them try and troubleshoot something with technology, on the other hand, and it becomes a whole different ballgame, right? Microsoft is saying, okay, we need to take that ease out, right? No more are you choosing to go to Windows 11. You're going to Windows 11, right? The user knowledge isn't there anymore like it was in the past. But anywho, I digress. No need to complain about that. It's the world we live in. It's something we have to deal with. So to get around this, there are a couple registry settings that we can look at adjusting, where you can, through Microsoft's documentation, and I know what I'm telling you is good to go to Microsoft's documentation. I completely understand that. Please believe me when I say I've gone to this documentation. It is not the worst that Microsoft's put out, nor is it normal Microsoft level documentation. It's actually pretty good. There are a number of registry keys that you can change to prevent things like preview updates, as well as OS major updates, like the jump from 10 to 11, where you can say set things like version or set things like build limitations. There are a number of settings within within the device themselves, where you see things from WSUS or you see things from WMA, where you're able to look at adjusting those. Can we prevent those items from trying to be installed by the cumulative update and the registry setting or the device settings themselves preventing that installation? No. It's still going to go onto the device. It's just not going to be active, at least as far as I've seen. So be aware that there is some leeway we can get here, especially when it comes to preview, which you can opt out of. But going in and saying, I want this Windows 10 device to stay Windows 10, it's going to be something where you're diving into the registry and you're looking at making updates. Okay. And then noting them somewhere so you remember what device you made updates to. Please note, scheduled actions do use local time of the dashboard itself. So for those of you who are like, what on God's green earth did I just say? When you come into the dashboard, underneath settings, general settings, and then here underneath office hours, the time zone, this is the time zone of your dashboard. So for instance, in my case, if I was managing somebody in California, I need to be aware that my dashboard time zone is New York. If I schedule something for noon New York time and apply it to that Californian client, it's going to happen at 9 a.m. their time. So I need to adjust accordingly. And if I'm not mistaken, for those folks in the Australian area, that is something we do quite need to be aware of, because like the US, you guys have a bunch of different time zones in your country. All right, so got those questions out of the way. A little bit of a rabbit hole there, but good questions nonetheless. Outside of our feature policy, we talk about automatic approval. I don't want to touch each device. So the last thing we're going to talk about today before we go and look at some scripting is going to be our management workflow. The management workflow, more so than almost anything else with Patch, is where you're going to live. And the reason I say this is because the management workflow is going to be our global client or site patch approval tool. I need to come in here and I need to see all ignored and missing patches that have been found within the last month. Here's my list. I need to see by classification or client, individual client or site. I need to come in and look at sorting by severity as I may need. I have the ability to do so. With my column control, I can see devices where items have failed and are missing or ignored, and I can click that hyperlink to get a list of the devices that I'm going to be working with for this individual patch that I'm looking at. Selecting one or many patches here will give me the ability to click Proceed, choose the appropriate action to take, click Next, choose my scope for servers and or workstations or individual clients and sites. You'll note right now I'm just kind of going ham and approving for everyone. Let's say I wanted to knock Tray Research out of this in Celtic Cider since I know they're not online. Ooh, and asset tracking because they don't have patch. The work machine doesn't for that matter too. I can come in and click next. I can either use my existing schedule for the policies that's been applied for those devices, or I can come in and say it is a Tuesday. I want to set a new schedule. I'm going to push this out to the 13th. But let's do this bright and early in the morning because I know the devices I've selected are going to be on. And I don't want to reboot. I want to control that. I can come in, click Apply, click OK, click OK, and refresh. And you will note my patches are slowly ticking off here. It's not quite immediate. It does take a couple minutes. But what I should be able to do is come to pending and see this start to fill. I can even come in and select pending as a column and track my devices as I would need. All right, so here's going to be my, is it manual or ignored and I need to patch it? Or is it an out of band patch, right? Those C-band patches from Microsoft, some third-party organization tells me I need to do this right now. Do it. Okay, we have that ability within here. All right. So I said I would talk about some scripting, and I said I would talk about some items that we need to be aware of. And that's going to focus on this reboot here. So on this 15 device, you can see my little reboot required symbol here in the north pane on the right-hand side. If I come to my summary, I will see a denotation. Hey, patch management says that there's a patch that needs to be rebooted, or a number of patches that needs to that requires a reboot. I can right-click on the device. I can come to reboot, and I can schedule it as I would need now or later. Okay, but this doesn't solve my problems of 5-minute timer. Doesn't solve my problems of it can't be put in the background. That prompt is going to happen. That end user is going to see it and they don't have a choice, right? What I can do is inside the developer portal, developer.enable.com, I can come to Insight. I can come to Recipes, and I can either search if I would like or scroll if you would like. Knock yourselves out however you would like to find the reboot patch set, or sorry, the reboot script set. And there are going to be a number of these, right? Reboot, Windows reboot is required from something. I like the reboot script if the device is not shut down for n number of days. What this particular script is going to do once it decides to pop up here is it's going to run a AMP or uh, automation manager policy. That automation manager policy is going to come with our reboot prompt. That reboot prompt is going to give you the ability as an MSP to not only control maximum delay time, 15, 30, 60, 90, 120, 3-hour, 4-hour, and I think it's 6-hour delay times for your end users to select. It'll give you the ability to have your end users cancel that reboot if they would like. Not a best practice, but it could be done. And it can be minimized. It can be branded, and it comes with a rich text editor. So now within this script here that is a simple and easy download, and then put it into the script manager, put it into the dashboard, you can set it up so that Friday at noon, because it's lunchtime, I'm going to run a script that's going to say, hey, has this device been rebooted in the past 7 days? If it has, let the dashboard know. Regularly scheduled maintenance isn't needed. If it hasn't, let the dashboard know. Device needs to be rebooted. Then go in, throw up that prompt to the end user, okay? And then the end user gets to complete the prompt. Once the prompt completes, we'll send the result back to the dashboard, and then the action selected from that prompt will happen, be it a reboot or a complete dismissal or a delay. There are a number of ways to track when the reboot happened. You could pull last boot time from the device itself. You could set a registry key. Okay, there's a number of different ways to do this, but this was my method in the real world over that 5-minute forced reboot because it gave my end users some control and it gave my end users some ability to look at interacting better with that reboot. Okay. We know devices need to be rebooted every 7 days. It is the best practice. Your end users don't. They look at reboots as waste of time. Give them some control over it. Give them some agency. Don't remove all of it, but still force it to happen within that 7-day period, or if it's ever missed, immediately. Okay, because again, we go towards patch is our 15-day, exploit on average world we're living in, and that is scary. Okay. All right. That brings us directly to the top of the hour, which puts us right at our end time here. Now, I will be happy to stay on the horn here for just a couple more minutes so that we can get questions answered and go through items like that. But that brings us to the end of our scheduled time. So we'll open up for questions, and we'll open up for anything that may need to be. All right, looks like we do have one question coming in. Oh, the patch script. Yeah, let me grab that link. Now, what I would recommend doing is Getting familiar with the developer portal. Okay. Now, I know I'm being a little bit flippant with saying, hey, here's a tool, get used to it. Yay. What I more so mean with this is yes, we have the reboot and recipe items in here. So think of this as the update to the cookbook. Okay. What the real power for this is first off, one, we have all of our API stuff in here. So this is the now new home for all of the Insight API items. This is the area where we're going to see the best documentation as our AI is updating. Okay. But what this also gives us the ability to do is, can we make a script that would reboot a device in Insight via API? I can come in and look at utilizing, say, API, or use API to do something. I can look at coming in and using this AI here to do things that we could not previously do before, and things that we may not have had the ability to do within our scripting. Now, does it have to be API based? No, right? Can you make a Python script that would, let's say, Python application, or agent? Agent would be better. You know, Roost. Right. And I'm being incredibly um, broad here. And you'll also notice it's not catching all of my typing there as I'm hitting enter. It's lagging just a little bit on me here, but suffice to say, we have AI built in here, and it is a great help, um, and it is a great tool to start using. Okay, the developer portal is going to continue to get more robust as we move to Ecoverse, as we move towards improving the Insight API. We're going to start to see it function more and more like centrals within the developer portal, which is just exceptional. Okay, so please do um, continue or look at utilizing this. All right, next question. If the patch is scheduled for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, is there a stop of patch installation after Friday before it restarts on Saturday, or does it continue until all patches have finished after a Friday start? Okay, so I think I've got what the question's saying here. I'm a little confused, but that's okay. So there's going to be a couple things we need to be aware with in the patch world, right? That are going to be limitations on how patch is going to work, right? First off, we're given a 10-minute download window, a 15-minute installation window. If it's not a 10-minute download and a 15-minute installation window, flip-flop those. It's a 15-minute download and a 10-minute installation window. Either way, we're given a nice, good long window to get those patches downloaded and installed. Okay, be it pulling from a third-party vendor or pulling from Microsoft, the same time frames are allowed here. Okay, if a patch goes longer than the 10 or the 15 minutes, it does get denoted failed. Right? If a reboot is required, okay, the the excuse me, the engine will look to see if there's anything else and then start pushing forward. So for instance, with that large group of patches that I just approved for my devices, all of those are going to install, and then a reboot will be initiated if you allow a reboot. If you do not allow a reboot through PME, no reboot will happen. Patches are going to be installed in batches of 5, I believe is what it is. So 5, go, download, install, 5, download, install, 5, download, install. Patches are completely installed. Is a reboot necessary? Reboot device. Okay. So there may be some gaps between the installation of the patches. Okay. But if we're patching on Friday and we are patching before 11 p.m. on a reasonably up-to-date device, we should not see anything bleed over into Saturday from the patch management engine. Now, let's say you don't have the reboot through patch management and it's through the automated task. That might bleed over into Saturday, depending on the schedule and the queue for that particular task. Okay, but you shouldn't see patch bleed over. I hope that answers that question. All right, next question. So this question here is a little bit of a broad one, and we have a good example for it here, but I do like it. Is there a way to get data from a device and deliver it to the dashboard? The example here is, say I want CPU temp from the command line and I want to drop it into a task log. There's going to be a number of ways that we can look at doing this depending on how you want to function with this. If it's something that we're going to want to run manually, it's going to be an automated task. So as we look at on the Insight dashboard. So as we look at the dashboard here, if I want something that I'm going to run maybe Tuesday, maybe Wednesday, maybe Thursday, I'm going to set it up as a PowerShell, Bash, Z Shell, Python, whatever language task. I'll add that as an automated task to the device, and then I'll be able to find any appropriate information within the hyperlink associated with that task itself. If this is going to be something that's running on an daily basis or a weekly basis, I'll make a decision as to whether or not I want it to be a check or a task based off of how long that item's going to take. If I am pulling a single snippet of information, CPU temp, more than likely I'm going to make this a check. I'm going to then make the decision of, do I need this information once a day or all day? If it's once a day, daily safety check. If it's all day, 24/7 check. If it's something that's going to run weekly, more than likely I'm going to make it a task, to just talk about timeframes real quick, or if it's going to take an extended period of time. Say, for instance, I want to export a mass ton of information out of the RMM dashboard via API, knowing that once I get above 50 to 100 API queries within a single script, I'm going to have to start putting waits in there of 5 to 15 seconds. So for instance, if I'm going to pull failing checks on every device where I have to query all my sites, find that list, then for each site for each client, find every site, then for each site, find all the devices, then for each device, list all my checks, and then for each check, get my status. I've got my weight in there. This is going to take a good amount of time. I'm running this as an automated task. Okay. And I'll also include something within that to take that information and present it somewhere nice, Power BI or whatever you're doing. Okay. But time frame for those daily items. Weekly is going to be a task, monthly is going to be a task. The real decision I think you have is more so when we come to the checks world. Let's say, for instance, I do want to pull CPU temp. My decision is going to be what type of check am I using? Is this going to be an SNMP check? Is it going to be a script check that, say, hits PowerShell, right? Is it going to be something that, may be done through more advanced scripting in a command prompt? Where am I going to be hitting this from? So for the example given, right, if I want CPU temp, right, I'm just going to use an SNMP check. I'm either going to pull the MIB myself, or I'm going to reach out to my vendor, ask for their MIB file, right, managed information. I forget what it stands for. My apologies. What the MIBs does is to give you your object identifiers. Your object identifiers are then going to be what you will use to pull those bits of information from, right? So there's always going to be a CPU temp OID, right? That's how I would do that one. So, it's really the fashion you want. But when it comes to tasks and keeping a rolling information base, right? Scheduled tasks are probably going to be your best way to do this within the dashboard. Now, if we're looking at trying to keep something above and beyond what our reporting is going to give us in our, say, automated tasks report, where I can customize time frame, but we can see where this is going in that I have 12 devices. It takes 15 to 20 seconds to load, and then I got to go through all of this, right? I know I didn't filter by client or task type. I get what I did here, kind of loading my hand. Okay. What I would look at doing within the dashboard is, for the task I run within PowerShell or Z Shell or whatever I'm using, have it set a registry value where you can set limits, right? So let's say this thing's running once a day. I need 30 days worth of information from the script and informational item running. What I'll have the script do is pull the registry value. That registry value will be X1, right? 1 being the first time it ran. Then the next time it runs, we're going to look at if value of registry is 1 plus another 1, or whatever the value is plus another 1. Don't create another registry value. It's already there. Stop running. If it's not there, create registry value X2, X3, X4, X5, and then have a loop in there where if you see registry value X30, hop back to 1 or 31 or whatever you want to set that limitation to. Maybe not the most elegant way to do it. You could probably do a log file. You could store this information within the dashboard in other ways, but that I think would be, off the top of my head, a couple first ways at looking at doing that. So hopefully that gives you some idea of where to go, and where you're going to be looking at this. But say without something a little bit more concrete than just, hey, I have a check here with a piece of information I want to store, you know, it's going to be such a broad answer with that. All right. Next question. Um, does PME support additional third-party applications beyond those listed in other vendors' approvals, or is it limited strictly to the applications on that list? It's limited to the applications on that list. The category or the classifications and vendors listed are what we patch for Windows devices. That being said, it's not hard to add things to those lists. So if you go to our ideas page at enable me or me.n-able.com, you can submit an idea to get a additional third-party patch added to the device. And I know in the past, telling somebody to go to me.enable.com in the ideas page and to add something to it when we were SolarWinds, or even when we initially started as Enable a number of years ago, it's kind of a black hole. It's not anymore. I have worked with partners who have required third-party patching. They put an idea into the ideas page. It garnered a reasonable amount of votes. It got added to the dashboard. I watched it happen in about a month and a half. I've seen the ideas page work. Use it. So if you have a patch that's not approved, but it is a commonly used one, or an application that's not approved in our third-party vendor list, and it's a commonly used one, submit it. We'd love to hear about it. Yeah, so back to this moving data to the dashboard question. When we're looking at examples of, say, PowerShell or something that's going to move that data to the dash, if you come to the developer portal, and I'm going to stick with this CPU temp item, but if you just type in that piece of information that you're looking for, if we don't have something within the recipes, right? Whoa, spell correctly. Yeah, so like if we don't have something within the recipes here, come in and just ask the AI, right? So like say for instance, CPU temp, if I don't know those keywords, just come in and say, can I track how hot a computer is with PowerShell? It'll think for a second and then it'll help me, right? If there's a recipe that it can think of finding, it will. If not, it's just going to start going through the PowerShell or Python or Z Shell or Bash that you need. If you want to filter through the recipes, you can. That's a little bit difficult. There's like 800 of them. But if you use the search here, you should be pretty good. If you're hesitant as to what keyword to match it to, typically whatever tree that piece of data is under on a Windows device or a Mac device will be a keyword in the script that interacts with it. So say we're looking at pulling something like, CPU, right? If I'm in diagnostics, I've got the ability to find some scripts in there pretty quickly, right? So the search should be pretty easy. And if the keywords don't trigger anything from a pre-built recipe, Well, we have a good AI in there to help, right? It's not going to leave you high and dry. Now, it's an AI. Do not take a script from that AI and just go plop it on a device and let it run. Okay, you need to vet it. You need to make sure it works. You need to make sure it's what you're looking for. Test it, edit. You're going to be editing it. The AI will get you 75, 80% of where you need to be. Okay. That extra 20% before you put it on a test device needs to be handled. Okay. All right. Looks like questions are slowing again. And we'll get to my thank you slide here. We are now 20 minutes over. If you couldn't tell by my accent, I am US based, so it is almost 10:30 my time. That being said, I don't want to say we can't have more conversations about this, or we won't. But to be said, I would like to get some sleep, and I still have a couple things I have to take care of at home. So, if you folks have any questions, contact your PSM. Your PSM will get you the right resource. If that resource can't be found or you don't know who your PSM is, joseph.furla@enable.com. I will talk to you about anything. I am the Insight Nerd, Operational Efficiency Nerd, Mac Head Nerd, Passportal Head Nerd, Mail Assure, Take Control, MSP Manager, former, well, kind of still Cloud Commander Head Nerd, just a generalist. So anything Enable product-wise you want to talk about, anything MSP market-wise you want to talk about, I'm happy to do so. If you don't want to talk about being an MSP and you want to talk about the NBA Finals or the NHL Finals or why, something happened with a Magic the Gathering release, we could argue why rugby is better than American football any day of the week. I'm happy to have those conversations. Um, so please feel free to reach out to me. Don't think that I'm just cutting you guys off. That's not my intention. I just don't want to keep you guys so long past our scheduled time. So thank you folks so much for joining. Reach out if you need any assistance. If you don't know who your PSM is, reach out to me. I'll find them and yell at them for you. And that being said, it's been a pleasure. I love these APAC boot camps, the Australia, New Zealand ones. I shouldn't say boot camps. I should say master classes now. You guys are always so interactive. And it makes these things a pleasure. It does also mean because I prattle, we take 30 extra minutes, but neither here nor there. Folks, I hope you guys have a great afternoon. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Again, if you need anything, reach out. And I will talk to you folks in the next boot camp or masterclass or office hours. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.